Okay, this will be a short one, I hope. A former police officer turned investigative journalist and the author of Missing411, which is a meme, feels the goal of his North American Bigfoot Search group to prove Bigfoot existed had succeeded in spite of criticism from the scientific community based on the same thing they always have. You didn't provide any proof that there's a Bigfoot. This is the person who is the author of the Missing411 meme. Credibility 404. David Paulides came up with this relatively unknown paranormal claim, which immediately someone's going to post below. He never said that. Yeah, he says nothing. Also, I'd like to point out Reddit pulled a Tumblr and says you're not allowed to argue with them again. And if you go on Reddit and actually tell somebody a simple explanation for something, they'll just say, nobody knows the answer, and then ban you. So anyway, here we go. This is the assertion. Now, it's said this way by people reviewing him that agree with him. American state park systems in the United States and other places, but in the United States, Canada, that sort of thing, are hiding or making people disappear when they enter the park. And this was achieved and looked up and figured out by doing statistical analysis of missing persons reports. This person's apparently a former police officer who should know better, and now an investigative journalist who's a Bigfoot believer that doesn't like it when people point out that he didn't prove Bigfoot existed. Because they didn't. So let's continue. So somehow the American state parks, there must be a conspiracy theory, or is it? Oregon Office of Emergency Management listed at one point 190 men and 50 women missing since 1997 or so, after trekking into the, quote, Oregon's wildest places. Read anywhere that people don't commonly live, because it's Oregon. Did you know there's an entire half, or a little over half, the state that's desert and scrubland and not mountainous? And he also says you can get the cluster map, version 2 or whatever, but you got to pay for it, so you know where not to go. And it's delightfully vague. Let's go on. Hundreds of people go missing every year, and most of them are found within a short time. There's a magic 3-day period. And no, you don't have to wait 72 hours before posting a missing persons report. And you also know what? Even if you explain that the person isn't missing anymore, it's not legally required that that fact be published as a conclusion or follow-up. There's no requirement of that. It's a non-issue. Oh, there's no problem? Okay, we'll just, close the books on it. They don't have to include an explanation. So you can find all sorts of, there's hundreds of missing persons reports. This is how the meme that children are used for satanic ritual abuse happens. Well, hundreds of thousands go missing every year. Yes, and almost exactly that same number are found. You leave that part out if you need to sell your BS story. And nobody likes hearing that. Even the Center for Missing and Exploited Children quotes the same sort of statistic over a long period of time or whatever. But when you ask them, you really have to press them about it. How many of these people are found? They say, well, we don't know. And then your response should be, well, my goodness, what an unscientific response. You didn't bother following up? How do you know they're not all found? They are. They're not doing it to collect money. They just want to keep everybody mindful of the fact that people go missing. Keep an eye out for them. That's why we have Amber Alerts and stuff. But anyway. So here are the assertions, and this is conclusions and short versions by people who agree with the guy. I'm not citing people who are disagreeing with him yet. Incidents that are featured involve mentally handicapped people or children, or both in some cases, going into forests. Frequently they shed their clothing, which is found clumped together or puddled together. And then the assertion is, like they'd melted out of them or something, which doesn't make any damn sense. Raptured, anyone? The people are never found. Oh, well, if they are found, because you do a follow-up and find out that everybody you said was missing last year is found, they're a remarkable distance from their starting location. Very vague. With little or no memory how they got there. Certain incidents that are cited are people taking a magic 3 days to be found. And I don't know if you understand this, but there's a reason 3 days is a magic number to be found alive. Some children have been found to move across many miles of wilderness, or climb mountain ranges, or climb down from them, or cross fast-moving streams somehow. And we are doing Texas sharpshooter incident here because these are the ones that were found. And then the vast majority that might have crossed a fast-running stream didn't make it, or the ones who tried to climb out of the mountain ranges and didn't make it, you don't count. You're counting the anomaly as the ones who didn't die. But we'll cover the clothing taken off and a few things you didn't know about. Now, this is a person who's supposed to be a former police officer, and they're supposed to have spent years in libraries looking this up. And let's not talk about Bigfoot here. And this person has the answer. Mysterious disappearances are mysterious. Okay. So here we go. After 6 books on missing people and giving no reasons for the disappearances and offering nothing to help anyone prevent it and doing no real critique of the situation, finding patterns, ignoring obvious answers for what happened. And again, the quote is for the entire state of Oregon since 1997. We're missing around a little over 200 people that have gone continually missing. So what are the most obvious answers? Because these are boring and don't sell books, because that's what this guy does. Incapacity due to following. Someone falls and can't move. This is an extremely common thing to happen. You fall down off of an ill-maintained trail, or a trail you weren't supposed to be on, and you break your damn leg or break your spinal column and you can't get out. Sudden health crisis because you ate some berries or drank some bad water, or just because of the exertion you develop dysentery, because that can happen. You can become weakened by this sort of exercise, trust me on this, and you'll have a sudden case of dysentery because your own gut flora is going where it's not supposed to, and your digestive system evacuates. You now have no food in your system, and instead of lasting a magical 3 weeks or 30 days or whatever it is for your body that you don't have to eat, and 3 days without water, you are now purging all of the water and food in your system, so now you have a very, very low lifespan. Unless you find water that's clean and eat some random food. Next. A lone person becoming immobilized far off the trail isn't magical. It just means they're just out of sight. Fire crews and people going out and maintaining trails have found dead bodies less than 20 feet from the trail so often that it's actually the joke that you go 20 feet up and down on a trail that's going level, because up is one way and down is the other. You'll find them. They're usually downhill of the trail, 20 feet to 50. You always search there. Some people will try to go uphill. You just look for places that you would go if you needed a place to hide. Underneath a pine tree with low-hanging branches is the usual place the bodies are found. And if a fire happens, the fire crews find the bodies and find out the body's been there for a long time. Or they find just the skeleton because the other things that happen, such as animal attack, or the body being eaten by animals, carrion eaters. Drowning, which means you become fish food. Or you just end up, quote-unquote, miles and miles away, being found dead in this case, because you washed up downriver. A river can move hundreds of miles. Environmental exposure. That's the one we're going to get to. And then finally, the one I'm going to bring up that I have to bring up every time people talk about mysterious disappearances. People trying to disappear. Walk into the woods, make it look like you disappeared, and just don't respond. Just adopt a new identity in another city. The connections that we have on the internet on purpose are very hard to maintain against our will. You just disappear. People do this all the damn time. That's why a lot of missing persons reports, if you actually look into follow-up, if a follow-up is done, is that the person was found a couple of weeks later having gotten married in Vegas or something. Next, look at the age range. There's an age range, before a certain age, no, but from this age to this age, where people tend to just disappear because they are runaways. This is extremely common. Anyway, we're going to get to the environmental exposure. But anyway, he seems to take any case of missing hiker as being part of some conspiracy and then refuses to specify what it is in most cases. Saying something was odd, like some of the disappearances happened near a specific bush, implying that Bigfoot took them or whatever. Other times, odd correlations, like 2 women with 3-letter names starting with A, years apart, because that was actually a quote from one of them. None of these are actually helping anything. They don't provide you any way of preventing this. There's no how-to on how to prevent this. I'm going to give you one. But after a thorough analysis of missing person data that was provided by this person, actually looking it up and seeing what he's got, a data skeptic podcast analyst named Kyle Paulides analyzed what he found and said there's nothing unexplainable, and it matches statistics on it for everywhere outside of forests. And also, the ones that didn't show up have the same patterns as the ones that did show up, meaning there's no difference between them. These just are the ones that never showed up again because they probably died in the forest. But anyway, and his quoting on it is really badly done, so I'm not going to do the rest of the quotes on him. But anyway, here we go. Here's what you look up to solve the environment problem. Why was the clothing piled up? Okay, here we go. Look up hide and die syndrome and terminal burrowing and paradoxical undressing. Fatal hypothermia. When people die from hypothermia. Not almost die, but literally die from hypothermia. Okay, here we go. This can also cause a person to do the get naked and dig syndrome. A primitive burrowing-like behavior of protection. It's found in hibernating animals and functions. In human beings, it ends up being hypothermia. Hypothermia is a variation on the same process that animals go through when they become hibernated. They go to a lower level, they go into suspended animation. It's the same thing. You're lowering your physiological cost of being alive by making it to where you don't actually have to use up a lot of energy to not die. Everything slows down. But in the case of humans, you then just die. It's induced only by cold. It cannot be induced any other way in a human, normally. There's also diving functions that are built into us. There's a bunch of instincts. They're vestigial capabilities we have. Babies, you can put them in water and they'll start swimming, for instance, or they'll try to float. You can even take advantage of it and make it to where they don't remember when they learned to swim, but they can swim. It's actually a good idea. You can look that up. But anyway, this is caused by, let's say, autonomous brainstem processes or the limbic system. It's triggered in the final state of hypothermia right as you're dying. Why? Because all of the other functions in your brain are shut down, but the part of your brain that's active can use your eyes and your feeling in your hands, which you might still have, suddenly, to try to find a place to hide from the cold and try to get warmed up. And that's where this comes from. Why do they take off their clothes? Hypothermia's primary stages is where your body flushes all of your blood to the core to keep you from freezing to death, which makes your hands and body completely cold on the outside. It also reduces feeling. And then a sudden rush of blood comes back when your body stops doing it efficiently. So you get overheated, take off your clothes, and you keep trying to find somewhere to go. Eventually, at the later stages, you will crawl underneath something or dig a hole. Your own grave in some cases. It makes it harder to find you because you're literally trying to find some place to hide from the pain. And this guy who's a former cop and maybe knew about search and rescue didn't look this up. This is a well-documented phenomenon. No, it's not space aliens or Bigfoot. And no, it's not the park system stealing humans for a slave trade on Mars. It's a guy exploiting everybody's lack of the ability to look up stuff and look for obvious answers. Sorry, but they are there. And you can talk to the Parks Department and actual recovery effort people. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And please stop feeding this guy.